This message is brought to you by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration.
People are going to feel a lot better about safety and getting products out there on the market quickly if they feel there's a robust safety net.
Will provide us both efficiencies and a kind of depth that doesn't exist now.
This is going to represent a very exciting and important new tool in what we do in the future. So I think it's very important.
So this is what I'm talking about. When safety concerns come up, we'll be able to answer them almost right away, which will really give people confidence that the products that they're using are safe.
I see this as a huge leap forward for FDA to be able to carry out its mandate to protect the safety of the American population with regard to regulated products.
We're all very excited about the possibility of actually implementing something that at the end of the day is purely intended and mostly intended for the public good.
It's a pretty exciting, extremely innovative effort.
As a key part of evolving evidence and data collection, the Sentinel Initiative marks a new era in the safety and regulation of medical products on the market.
Sentinel is a new concept for doing surveillance on marketed drugs that takes advantage of existing healthcare data that's already out there, being collected and used for other purposes, but trying to find ways that we can actually use it to look for safety events or adverse events that happen to patients.
It's going to get you and me and all of us citizens better information about the medical products we use. When to use them, when not to use them, what to use them with, what not to use them with.
We're seeing more and more electronic record systems in place, more and more reliance on interoperable health information technology to do everything from fill prescriptions to make sure patients aren't on drugs that are causing adverse interactions. Pulling information from that system together in a way that achieves the goals of identifying potential safety problems with drugs and helping to follow up on them is a key reason why Sentinel is so important right now.
What this means is that Sentinel will use the data from electronic health records, insurance databases, and other healthcare resources to help us better understand the medical products we are using, so we can know whether a drug or device is performing the way we expected it to do once it is introduced into medical practice. For example, imagine FDA wants more information about a serious side effect possibly associated with a recently marketed drug. With Sentinel, FDA could develop a query to evaluate the relationship between the drug and the adverse side effect. The Coordination Center would identify and pass along the query to appropriate healthcare data holders. Following established privacy and security safeguards, these data holders would search their records to find evidence of any association between drug X and the serious side effect, sending summary reports of their findings back to the FDA. FDA would consider these findings, along with other sources of information, to determine what action, if any, FDA should take. The question is, how do we best do this?
You need to be outfitted with a pacemaker because of a certain...
I think everybody who's been thinking about Sentinel agrees that to try to take a lot of patients' healthcare data from a variety of different systems and dump them in some giant bucket really wouldn't be practical, and I think it would make everyone very uncomfortable of what was going to happen to that information because there are concerns about privacy. So what we're talking about doing is actually pulling these together in kind of a virtual network, if you will, a distributed network where we leave the data where they are, but try to come up with ways where we could run common queries across the data system.
We're going to have the owners of the data, whether it's a claims database or a healthcare system, have the capacity to query their own database and then send the results back centrally. And we are going to provide them the wherewithal to do these queries, and then we'll be able to look at the combined results.
There are a lot of data systems out there now, and the FDA and the private sector have a lot of experience in doing research studies and even doing signal detection analysis with some of those databases. The big challenge for Sentinel is going to be bringing them together and finding the best ways to use this information collectively to get to faster and more effective conclusions about safety signals.
The one thing to remember is that the Sentinel system will only be useful in the post-market domain, once a medical product has been introduced into practice. This is important because while thorough and comprehensive, the FDA's evaluation and approval process simply can't foresee all post-market consequences, intended or unintended. Post-market safety reporting is a mostly volunteer system. The Sentinel will significantly enhance this approach.
Much of our post-market activities are based on a passive surveillance reporting system, and although it has its advantages, it certainly has its limitations. But because of its inherent limitations, FDA has got to go beyond the use of just that tool to complement its post-market activities.
What we're hoping is that this system will allow us to perhaps learn about safety events, adverse events that happen that perhaps aren't reported to us. And so it's a way for us to get at different kinds of events with different kind of underlying frequencies, so that even if someone doesn't recognize something and report it to us, we'd still be able to see it, try to understand how often it happens and to whom, and then be able to act on that.
Currently, the FDA has many planned and ongoing projects that will inform Sentinel. These include CDRH-supported efforts to link national cardiovascular device registry data with electronic claims data, and the CBER-CDC Vaccine Safety Data Link, or VSD.
The Vaccine Safety Data Link is a consortium of 8 health maintenance organizations that work with the CDC and the FDA to evaluate the safety of vaccines. The Vaccine Safety Data Link has developed a almost near real-time monitoring capability that they call rapid cycle analysis.
Scientists can use the VSD's Rapid Cycle Analysis program to analyze specific adverse events in near real time. This allows them to determine whether or not these adverse events are occurring more frequently or in a greater number than they had originally anticipated.
The VSD is, in a way, a small version of Sentinel. It focuses only on vaccines, where Sentinel will focus on all FDA-regulated products.
We learned some very important lessons from the Vaccine Safety Data Link. We learned that this type of distributed network, which is what the Sentinel is going to be, is feasible, and we can learn important information from it. It hadn't been done before in that way.
We've been hearing recently from many experts in industry and from consumer advocacy perspectives, from academic perspectives, about how to address problems like putting these different kinds of databases together, what kinds of statistical analyses are most appropriate, how the results can be effectively communicated, how patient privacy and confidentiality can be addressed, and what's the right way to bring all this together, what kind of governance structures and coordination is needed for this network. Those are all questions that we're in the process of answering now.
Any questions before we get going?
While these efforts are a great start, we still have much to learn about differences in data format and collection structure for Sentinel to achieve its real potential.
We have little pockets of databases, and almost all of the questions we ask of those databases are one-off questions, and so it's inefficient and it's time-consuming.
That's potentially a big issue. Each data set has its own peculiarities. Depending on how the data were derived, there are other data sources, the emerging electronic health record, that's got a lot more depth on the clinical side, but does not have the broad capture that we've seen in the past few years with claims data. The tricky part is, how do you bring these very disparate types of data together and make sense out of it so that you can take advantage of the large numbers, yet still respect the differences in the types of people being treated and even the peculiarities of each system.
To expand and to fulfill the potential for the Sentinel Initiative, it's going to take some more work across a broader range of stakeholders, health plans, systems for delivering health care that rely on electronic records, maybe even personal health record-based systems that individuals could use to contribute to this overall effort on improving our knowledge about the safety and use of drugs and other medical products.
The hope that Sentinel brings is that we'll be able to identify safety issues earlier than we've been able to identify them in the past, and either make adjustments in the way the medications are delivered to the patient or identify subsets of patients who may be more or less at risk than others. So we see Sentinel as a wonderful bringing together of data resources as well as methods.
While this promises to be a powerful tool to transform healthcare and safety, there are a number of questions that must be answered before we can move significantly forward. These include how the data will be accessed, protecting security and patient privacy, and something referred to as governance.
You would want a governance structure that has in place standard operating procedures. You want to have some mechanism to make sure they're being followed. Part of governance is the patient privacy issue. But again, it's the idea of safeguarding the public health, making sure that the intent of this project is in fact adhered to, and there's some measure of the success or failure of it, and some feedback loop to make sure that those deficiencies are corrected.
What we do think is that it will live outside of the government. It will not be something that the government owns or has or maintains. It will be a living, breathing kind of relationship that is there for a variety of uses. It'll be a societal resource rather than just an FDA resource. FDA is taking the lead because we both have a mandate and an interest in trying to make this happen. But I think there are multiple stakeholders who will benefit from this, and I think it takes FDA to take a leadership role in helping to mobilize all those stakeholders together to make something happen.
There are pilots underway to address aspects of governance. It's up to FDA to learn about these systems, to take the best of what they have to offer and to build on them. And so that includes not only governance issues, but again, how to deal with the data and methodologically approach it.
FDA has been reaching out to stakeholders and industry through a series of public meetings, exploring the various approaches to developing the Sentinel system. The agency will continue taking the lead, keeping apprised of multiple ongoing pilot projects and their usefulness to the Sentinel Initiative, and continuing to evaluate the various approaches.
We're doing something that isn't done very often. We're building, if you will, an analogy would be a utility, a new utility, or a new highway system. It's really a novel concept. And in doing that, we're going to partner with health plans, with those with robust data sets, large care organizations that take care of large numbers of patients. We're also partnering with academics. A lot of the scientific know-how about methodologies and tools rests in these academic centers. This is a novel approach, and we need all the brain power possible to learn how to do this.
We all will get value from implementing this, and having the public-private partnership allows for opportunity for new research, new development of ideas that go beyond what the FDA has the capacity to do currently. So it seems to me there's a lot of opportunity here and very little downside. We're essentially at the very beginning, and I think the sky's the limit in many respects. When you look at where we are, we're just starting to scratch the surface. I think we don't yet know what we'll be capable of.
We're committed to doing it because it has to be done. It's the right thing. It's the right time. Not to say it's easy. In fact, it's one of the most difficult things I think we've ever attempted. It's not to say that the funding streams are assured. They are not. But we will fight for it, and we will prevail. We will do whatever we have to do to make sure it gets done, and it gets done right.
This message has been brought to you by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration.